People are always asking me about fish dishes because they worry that the spices in Indian cooking are going to overpower their fish or spoil it. So I'm going to show you how to make a Goan fish curry, which is a very typically a South Indian dish. The first thing we're going to do is marinate the fish, and quite often whenever I cook fish, I tend to marinate it, especially with an Indian recipe. I would always marinate it, and the marinade very much stays the same. So it's lemon juice, which goes straight in. Try and keep hold of the pips. Squeeze that in. I'd probably use about 600 grams, and I always, this particular dish is good with white fish, so whether that be haddock, pollock, whatever you want to use. Okay, and into that I'm going to put a teaspoon of some salt. Just sprinkle that in. And then half a teaspoon of turmeric. And this is very typical of any sort of South Indian fish dish. You always tend to marinate the fish beforehand. And you're almost starting the cooking process with the lemon juice. Ideally, you want to leave that to marinate for about half an hour. You can do it for longer, but there's not really any need. What I have done is cut my fish into nice big chunky pieces, and the reason for that is when we cook it in the sauce, I want those pieces of fish to stay together. I don't want it all to flake into little pieces. So I'm just going to pop that to one side. If you're going to leave it for longer, I'd put it in the fridge. If you're just going to cook it straight away, sort of within half an hour, then you can just leave it on the side. So I'm just going to pop that to one side and then get on and make the spice paste. To make the spice paste, I'm going to use some lovely fresh spices. First off, coriander seeds, which will give a lovely zingy lemony aromatic. So that's about 3 teaspoons. And then I'm going to put in some cumin seeds, 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds. I'm going to give them a bash just to break up the seeds, get the oils flowing, get the aromas going. You don't need to be too precious about it. You don't need to get a fine powder because we're going to put all of this into the other blender with all of the other ingredients to make the paste. So grind it up. That's it. You don't want it too coarse, but that will probably do. So I'm looking for that sort of texture. So I'm going to put that into my other blender to start the spice paste. So the other ingredients that I'm going to use for this spice paste are these lovely Kashmiri chillies. And you buy them dried like this, and what I've done is I've rehydrated them in some hot water, which I've put into a bowl, and I'm using 8 chillies here. A Goan fish curry has the tendency to be fairly spicy because it's balancing all of those lovely flavours. So you've got the heat from the chilli, you've got the sweetness from the coconut. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop those straight into my blender. I'm just going to take the ends off, and what you're looking for is for them to go almost like that squidgy texture. So just take the ends off, and the reason that I've rehydrated them really is it just softens them up, which means that they'll blend much more easily. So I'm just going to pop that in. I know that feels like a lot of chilli, but this dish really needs it. So pop all of those in there. Keep hold of that water because we're going to use a little bit of that when we try to make the paste, just to hydrate it a little bit. Into that I'm also going to put in some coconut, and I always use fresh coconut for this dish because I just think you need to with this, because it's all about those fresh flavours, those South Indian flavours. So I'm going to pop that in as well. Roughly about 80 grams of coconut. The other key ingredients really are an onion, which I'm just going to roughly chop. Oops, pop that straight in. I'm going to pop in 2 cloves of garlic, And then what I've got here is some tamarind, which has been soaking. So you can either buy tamarind in a block, which you need to rehydrate, or you can buy it as a paste. If you buy it as a paste, you can just pop a tablespoon in and that's probably enough. I always like to use the dried stuff and just rehydrate it in some hot water. So I'm just going to pour that in. And because I've got that liquid in there, it probably means I don't need to use as much of the chilli water as you would do if you bought a paste and used that. Okay, so that goes in there and I'm just going to blitz that. And this is going to take a fair while because you want it to become a paste. You don't want big chunky pieces of onion. So I'm going to blitz that up. Right, that's looking quite dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the chilli water, just a couple of tablespoons, and that's just going to help it all break down and combine together. I just actually push that down. It smells really quite pungent, really quite strong and a little bit pokey, but that's what this dish is all about. So we're going to give that a whiz again. So that's done, that's looking lovely. The paste you can see has changed colour. It's a beautiful orangey red colour now, which all comes from those chillies. So what we're going to do is we're going to fry that paste off. I've got a pan heating up here. I always go for a wide base pan, especially when I'm cooking fish, because you want the fish to cook evenly and you don't want to have to stir it lots. So I'm going to put in a tablespoon of oil. And the first thing I'm going to do is pop in some sliced onions. What's important about the onions is that you don't really want them to colour, you don't want them to brown. So I'm just going to soften them just for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to pop in the spice paste, which needs to cook down until the raw onion and the garlic that's in there cooks through. The onions have been frying for about 5 or 6 minutes, probably a little bit more brown than I wanted them to go, but hey ho. What I'm going to do is put in the spice paste now, and it's really important, as I've said before, that you cook down your spice paste. Be a bit careful because you've got lots of raw chilies and garlic and so on. This will catch the back of your throat, and it'll probably make you cry a little bit as well, but that's all the fun of cooking. There we go, so pop that in there and then just give that a stir. I'm going to turn the cooker up just a little bit, just to get slightly more heat to the spice paste, just to get it cooking. I'm going to fry this off, probably again for another 5 or 6 minutes. Just making sure that all of those raw flavours are cooked through. Keep an eye on it because it can sort of catch the bottom of the pan. But whilst that's cooking away, I'm going to blitz up some tomatoes. Just whole tomatoes, nothing exciting. If you want to, you could use tinned tomatoes, but again, this is a fish dish where you want lots of fresh flavours in there. Lots of freshness to go with the tamarind, to go with the coconut. I'm going to use whole fresh tomatoes. Just pop them in the blender and just make a puree out of them. Don't take much. There we go, that's what we're looking for, just a blitzed up tomato. Right, so just going back to my pan, starting to cook, it's starting to get fragrant. I can smell all of the flavours coming through. So what you're looking for with this dish is that balance, that coconut, the chilli, the tamarind, the lemon juice that the fish is marinating in. All of those flavours come together to create a really lovely balance. There we go. The paste needs to go just a touch darker, just almost a shade darker, and that's when you know that it's ready. So I'll just get my tomatoes ready because they're going to go in next. The other thing I'm going to put in to this dish, again going back to, because it is a fairly spicy dish, I'm just going to put some whole chillies in, but what I'm going to do is just slice them lengthways. That's going to very gently heat up the dish in terms of the chilli level. So you don't have to put 3 in, you could put 1 in, you could put none in, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to pop 3 in. I'm going to put those in now, just as the spice paste is coming to the right sort of, there we go. With this dish, traditionally, it's a very liquidy dish, so the gravy comes from either coconut milk or the coconut water, or it comes from just normal plain water. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to go down the traditional route, you can use water, which makes it a very watery dish. If not, you can go down the coconut milk route. And what that will do is just give a slightly thicker, richer sauce. Today I'm going to use water, but by all means go down the coconut milk route. If you like almost like that Thai curry flavour, that's what you'll end up if you use coconut milk. But it's your choice, really. The other thing that will do is also it'll sweeten up the dish a little bit more. It's really important that you make sure that your spices are all cooked through and the spice paste is cooked through, because you don't want those raw flavours. You can see it's all dried up. There's no liquid in there and it's gone slightly darker. So now I'm going to add my tomatoes in. Stir them through. And we're just going to cook this for another minute or so. And then I'm going to add my water to that, and then I'll bring the fish back in. So let that cook down just a little bit more. The other thing that I'm also going to add in is the coconut that I got from my fresh coconut. So it's the water that's come out the middle of it. There's no point throwing that away because that's going to add a slight sweetness, and it's a real shame to not use it. So I'm going to use that. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, we've not put any seasoning in here yet, we've not put any salt in, and the reason for that is we've got it in the marinade with the fish. So once you add your fish, then always make sure you taste it, because it may be that you have to tweak it slightly and you have to add a little bit more. So, okay, so into that I'm going to put in my coconut water, and then I'm going to add some water. And just stir that through. Now you want all of that to heat up and just come together. And once that's piping hot, then I'm going to pop my fish in. So that's been sat there for about half an hour. And remember, you've got the lemon in there, you've got the salt. So you've got some lovely flavours just in the fish, which are also going to enhance the sauce. Now this is going to take 4 or 5 minutes to cook. So just make sure you're happy with your sauce before you do this bit. What you don't want to do is start folding your fish in so that it all breaks. You want to serve up lovely big chunks of that fish with some yummy, yummy sauce. And I'm going to pop in the juice as well. So with my spoon, I'm just going to coat that fish. I'm going to turn it down because I don't want it to boil. I'm going to coat the fish. And just give it a little bit of time for all the flavours to amalgamate and come together. Just looking really lovely. The fish has been cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes now, and I can see it's ready because it's just starting to flake off. I'm going to have a taste, just make sure that the seasoning's right. Hopefully it'll be okay. It's really tangy, really lemony. Oh, and then you get the real kick of chilli. Oh, that's delicious, but it passes. It's not about building up heat. I am going to add just a little pinch more salt. And remember, this is to your personal taste. If you don't need to add any more, then that's fine. Final finishing touch for me, I like to go in with a handful of coriander just to freshen that dish up. Not that it needs it, because that lemon juice is delicious. That combined with the tamarind gives a beautiful flavour. So that's it, we're good to go. I'm going to serve that up, and I'm going to serve it just again with some plain rice, because you've got that beautiful luscious sauce there. So be careful and scoop up some nice big chunks of that fish.